watching Arcanine.
Hello Internet, Legend here, and today I'll be reviewing the Legendary Deck Box number 2. Now this came out October 5th in the United States, and what it is a collection of 3 different very unique decks, paying homage to the 3 original anime protagonists, Yugi Moto, Joey Wheeler, and Seto Kaiba. Now, of course, this is far too much to review in one video, so I'm going to break it down into 3 videos. And, of course, starting off this amazing review set will be the Yugi deck, because it was A, the middle deck, B, the 3 promo cards that came with the box pretty much go in the Yugi deck. I put them in the Yugi deck because, as a whole, the way I'm reviewing this, I want to review all the cards in the box, and the 3 promo cards only go into the Yugi deck. They don't work in any other deck. So, I'll talk about those later on because we are reviewing this deck today. So, let's talk about price and is it worth it, right off the bat, since this is the first episode. Now, the box itself is $30. That sounds pretty expensive, I hear you say. Well, think about it like this. A regular pre-constructed deck goes for about $11.99. That's about the average US cost for a pre-constructed deck. This box comes with 3 pre-constructed decks, and honestly, if I'm being for real here, most of the cards in these pre-constructed decks are way better than other pre-constructed decks. So you're getting, you're saving $2 off each pre-constructed deck in this box, and you're also getting 3 very unique promotional cards that are, as far as I know, only in this box for right now. The only way to obtain these cards is to either buy them in singles from a game store, from eBay, or to get this box. So, is it worth it price-wise? Yes. Just based off the fact that usually a pre-constructed deck would cost you $11.99, and 3 of these come in this box for $30. Off that principle alone, this is a good deal. As far as cards inside it go, it's really up to you, honestly. It's up to if you want these cards or not. This is a very good way to get them. They come in very nice. A very nice box, very well packaged. Some packaging issues have occurred with Yu-Gi-Oh! In the past where cards would come in bent, or because of the way they're packaged, it's almost impossible to open them without bending or fraying the edges of the card. This has no problems like that. They're very well packed. They come just very well presented altogether. So, let's jump into the first deck, the Yugi deck. Now, this isn't based off of any one particular deck that Yugi Moto has had. What this is kind of like, what if? It's a what if scenario. What if Yugi kept all the pieces of Exodia when he obtained the God cards? So this deck, I split this review into 3 parts, because this deck seems like it wants to do 3 different things. You have the God cards, and all the cards that support it are them. You have the pieces of Exodia, and all the cards that support Exodia, and then you have Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, and all the cards that support those 2, or that fit into their category. So I kind of split it into 3 different sections, and at the end I'll give an overall review. So let's get started. The first section we have are the God cards. Now, the God cards are very powerful. Don't get me wrong. The Raw is kind of fucking useless, but Obelisk and Slifer are very powerful if played right. Honestly, this deck feels more like Obelisk would be the proper course of action. There is some overlay, like for instance, if you're trying to get all the pieces of Exodia out, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have Slifer, because you're always going to want to have a full hand. You're always going to be wanting to get more cards. You're going to, you know, want to keep every piece of Exodia, so the closer you get to Exodia, the more powerful Slifer is going to become. That being said, these cards really kind of need a deck to themselves. They're so hard to get out. You need 3 tributes, and you cannot special summon any other way. They're very, 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 situational. Raw is so situational. I would never play Raw if I took it out immediately. I don't play Raw. The life point drain, you're just too vulnerable. Obelisk and Slifer are both really good cards. So, what this deck does to support the God cards, and I should mention, the deck comes with tournament legal versions of the God cards. Not the ones you see on screen, but the ones with the actual effects listed on the card. So before anyone comments down below, yes, I know, it's just I like this picture more. So what the deck does to support its God cards are, it has creatures like BLOCKMAN. And I know you're asking, how does this support God cards in any way? Well, what these cards do, like BLOCKMAN and other cards I'll show later on, they produce tokens. So they basically mass produce monsters so you have enough sacrifices right off the bat. So with BLOCKMAN, say you get him out there and you throw Swords of Revealing Light out. That's at least 4 turns that you're going to keep this guy alive. Then you can make his effect go off, tribute him, have 4 block tokens, then tribute 3 of those tokens to play a God card. That's basically the extent of the support this deck goes through with God cards. BLOCKMAN's a nice addition. His effect's really nice. His stats are kind of garbage, but, you know, whatever. Next up, we have the Tricky for God card support. And I know, again, how does this support God cards? Well, the Tricky himself doesn't. But the deck also comes with Tricky Spell 4, which basically lets you send one face-up the Tricky to your graveyard, and then summon as many Tricky tokens as your opponent has monsters. So, say your opponent has 4 creatures. Throw the spell down, you sacrifice Tricky, you get your 4 creatures out, then bam, you sack 3 of them to throw a God card out. It's as easy as that. You could get, because the Tricky lets you special summon it if you discard a card from your hand, you could literally summon a God card as soon as your opponent has enough creatures out. All you'd have to do is rely on your opponent to get board presence. And this deck allows you to stall because of Exodia, so, you know. Next up we have Dark Factory and Mass Production. Target 2 normal monsters in your graveyard, add those targets to your hand. I mean, you know, it's a good way to get sacrifice fodder for your God cards. You know, that's the extent of how this helps God cards. Honestly, I just couldn't find any, you know, this is one of the cards that if you want it to make replacements, I would start here. I would take this card out, because there aren't even a whole lot of normal monsters to begin with in this deck. So, I would just take this card out and replace it with something else that supports God cards. Yeah, so moving on, we have the Exodia part of this deck. Now, the Exodia portion of this deck has a very specific purpose. It either wants to get all the pieces of Exodia in your hand, wants to get Exodia NECROSS out, or wants to get the new Exodia card out. And it wants to stall the fuck out of your opponent to do it. So, we all know what the pieces of Exodia do. Get them in your hand, you win. Ties to the Brethren. Now, this is a new card, as far as I know, that only comes in this box. What it does is let you pay 2,000 life points, then target 1 level 4 or lower monster you control. So, you know, a piece of Exodia, for example. Special summon from your deck 2 monsters with the same type, attribute, and level as that monster, but with different names for each other. As you Also, you cannot special summon the rest of the turn. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn this card's activated. So, as you'll see later on in this deck, there are a lot of ways to get pieces of Exodia out of the graveyard and into your hand, or even you want pieces of Exodia into the graveyard. So, say you have a left arm in your hand. Play that left arm, you play the spell, you get a right leg and a right arm. And then you do something, sacrifice them, use them as defense walls, activate Torrential Tribute, and you send all those to the graveyard. Well, now you have 3 pieces of Exodia in your graveyard. You know where they are. There are plenty of cards in here that let you get them back to your hand. There are plenty of cards in here that benefit from them being in the graveyard, and we'll go over those later. This card's very powerful. It costs a lot to use. You pay 2,000 life points. You can't conduct a battle phase that turn. But it's super, super powerful. So, glad this is in here. It helps Exodia out a lot. Next up, we have the legendary Exodia Incarnate. Now, this is the big deal. This is, again, as far as I know, this card came with this box, and this box only. So, I'm going to read the effect real quick. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned from the hand by tributing 1 Forbidden One monster, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 1,000 attack for each Forbidden One monster in your graveyard. Remember earlier when I said you want pieces in the graveyard? Well, here's why. Unaffected by other cards' effects. So, this card's unaffected by traps, spells, effect monsters, whatever. Once per turn during your end phase, add 1 Forbidden One monster from your graveyard to your hand. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can reveal any number of Forbidden One monsters from your hand, and if you do, draw 1 card for each of them. So basically what this card's wanting you to do, pile Forbidden One monster pieces up in your graveyard. You know, if your opponent plays a card that makes you discard a piece of Exodia. You know, like, do whatever you got to. And then play a piece of Exodia, and since it's a special summon, immediately tribute that and play this guy. 1,000 attack for each piece in your graveyard, and every turn, you get to draw into another piece. If you can keep him alive until he hits 0, let him die by battle. Put him in defense, let someone kill him. And then you can draw as many cards as you have pieces of Exodia in your hand. This card is super fucking good. This is why this deck is so scary. Because the Exodia engine in this deck works pretty well. I will say if the whole deck was built around Exodia and not just portions of it, it would be better, but the Exodia engine works in this deck. Which is even more reason you should go get this, because it's a pretty good Exodia engine. So, moving on. We have MARSHMALLON. I know what you're gonna ask. How does this support Exodia? It doesn't. It supports stall, which is all Exodia is, pretty much. This little guy is so fucking annoying. Cannot be destroyed by battle, period. And you put him in face of someone attacks him, bam, they lose 1,000 life points. It's just annoying to deal with, and a stupid obstacle your opponent has to get over. And in the right situations, it can completely wall your opponent if they don't have destruction, trap, or magic. Your opponent's gonna be kind of fucked. They can't get around this. They can't attack you directly, because this is in the way. I mean, this card is super good. My wife uses it all the fucking time. It's a very, very good card. So, I mean, it helps Exodia out immensely. It can burn turns and turns and turns from your opponent. So, moving on. SANGAN. Now, the errata, I'm going to read SANGAN. I know a lot of you are like, oh, well, I know what SANGAN does. Remember, it got errata. So, here's the new effect. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, add 1 monster with 1,500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. But you cannot activate cards or effects of cards with the name, with that name for the rest of the turn. You can only use the effect of SANGAN once per turn. So, has to be sent from the field to the graveyard. and you get to add one monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. So, what you could, potentially if you have 4 pieces of Exodia, I'm not quite sure how this would work with the head. You would have to have the head in your hand because it says you can't activate effects of the cards that you got this turn for the rest of the time. So, or I guess when you end your turn and go to your opponent's turn and then you win anyway, but basically you have 4 pieces of Exodia in your hand, put SANGAN down, throw him into some big monster. He dies, you get Exodia, you win. That's what this does, basically. Contract with Exodia. Now, this is for this. These 2 cards are connected at the hip, so we're gonna treat them both as the same. You can only activate this card when you have Exodia the Forbidden One, right arm of the Forbidden One, left arm of the Forbidden One, all the pieces. Fuck reading. You have all the pieces of Exodia in your graveyard. Special summon Exodia NECROSS from your hand. So if you have all pieces of Exodia in your graveyard, you can special summon this guy from your hand. Now, his effect is long, and you may not be able to read it because of how condensed it is, but I'm going to read it for you. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned with Contract of Exodia, and cannot be special summoned in other ways. Cannot be destroyed by battle, or spell and trap effects. So the only real way to destroy this guy is with monster effect. Once per turn, during your standby phase, this card gains 500 attack. Yeah, that's weird. This card gains 500 attack. Destroy this card unless all 5 pieces, or all 5 of these cards are in the graveyard. And then it's the pieces of Exodia. So basically, this card infinitely gains attack. So every standby phase, he gains 500 more attack. He can't be destroyed by battle or by spell or trap effects. But the second one of those pieces of Exodia leave your graveyard, he goes away. So he is very powerful, especially in a stally deck like Exodia, where your opponent just has turns and turns where they can't do anything. He can gain momentum very, very quickly. 500 points a turn is no joke. So, it's hard. It's very hard to get this combo off. It's harder than most people would think, because you only have one piece. Well, you only have one of each piece in the deck, because they're limit 1. You can't have 3 left arms and 3 right legs. You only have 1 right leg, 1 left arm per in the deck, you know. So it's hard to get them in the graveyard, but if you do, this is a good second win condition, because it's hard to stop this motherfucker. Next up we have Messenger of Peace. One of the most frustrating cards in this deck, I swear to God. Monsters with 1500 or more attack cannot declare an attack. Once per turn, during your standby, pay 100 life points or destroy this card. So, this is an annoying card. This is very annoying, and the price you have to pay for this kind of card is so low, it's almost unfair. Basically, what you could do is just put a card with 2000, like, put the Tricky down in attack mode. Put this card, put Messenger of Peace down, and your opponent can't do anything to you. If they attack you, they have to have 1500, or they have to have 1400 or less, so they're gonna be destroyed by your Tricky. If they boost their monster, they'll hit the 1500 mark and they won't be able to attack. The only real way around this card is to MST it or something, get it off the field. Super annoying. Gold Sarcophagus. This is a really good way to get Exodia pieces into your hand. That's just it. So banish 1 card from your deck, face up. During the second standby phase after this card's activation, add that card to your hand. Super straightforward, very easy way to get Exodia pieces. Very powerful card. This can be a timer. If you have 4 pieces and you activate this on the 5th piece, that's a fucking clock that your opponent has to deal with. If they can't discard cards out of your hand or in the duel in 2 turns, they lose. You know, so very powerful card. Sword of Revealing Light, I don't have to read this card. If you don't know what this card does, you probably don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Stall, Exodia, Stall, Exodia. Pot of Bounty. This card's fucking amazing. So basically what you do is you take the top 3 cards of your deck and you banish them. And then you add you banish the top 3 cards of your deck and you add one of those to your hand. After that, shuffle the rest of the cards back into your deck. You can only activate this one of these cards per turn. There's only one in the deck anyway. And you can't special summon monsters the turn you play this card. This is a powerful card. Basically it lets you, if we're taking it to a very basic level, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, pick one, put it into your hand, shuffle the other 2 back. There. You can't special summon, and you can't play another Pot of Duality this turn. That's powerful. That's like, in Magic, we would call that draw and scry. You get to draw, not only draw, but you also get to manipulate the top of your deck. So, very powerful card. It can stop a lot of deck draws. So, you know. Then we have another card that came with the box that I don't think you can get anywhere else. Obliterate! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Okay, this is a mouthful, so get ready. You can target one monster on the field. Send one Forbidden One monster or Exodia card from your hand or deck to the graveyard. And if you do, return that target to the hand. If this card is sent from the spell trap card zone to the graveyard, you can target one Forbidden One monster or Exodia card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use one Obliterate per turn, effect per turn, and only once that turn. So, that was a mouthful. You can target one monster on the field. It doesn't specify. Your opponent, say your opponent has a Blue Eyes White. Target that Blue Eyes White. Go through your deck. Pick an Exodia card or a Forbidden One piece. Put it into your graveyard. That monster goes back to the hand. Whether it's your monster or your opponent's, it goes back to their hand. Then, once this card's destroyed, it goes to the graveyard. You get to go through your deck, or your graveyard, and pick one Exodia or Forbidden One piece and put it into your hand. Again, more ways to get Exodia pieces out of the graveyard or into your hand as quick as possible. This card's incredible. I love this card. This is a very powerful card. It goes perfect with this deck. So, moving on. Monster Reincarnation. Again, you're probably like, how does this help you with Exodia? You should know by now. Target one monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Pieces of Exodia in the graveyard. Honestly, the graveyard is probably the best places for pieces of Exodia. It's just so easy to get them out in this deck. Monster Reincarnation is the perfect card to do that. So, and Big Shield GARDNA. Stall. Again, this deck is all about that stall. You know? This just helps buy time to get Exodia. So, Gravity Bind's the last card on here for the Exodia piece, or portion of the deck. Level 4 higher monsters cannot attack. Again, this is basically a backup messenger piece. So, yeah, it's just more things that keep your opponent from doing stuff while you get pieces of Exodia. You know, trying to make the game as much like Solitaire as possible, basically. Alright, moving on, we have the Dark Magician portion of the deck. Now, some of these cards, some of the support cards, could technically be used with Exodia pieces and shit because they're spellcasters, but they wouldn't really benefit. These are cards that I feel fall in line with the Dark Magician subcategory, the you know, high-level offensive spellcaster and warrior type monsters. So we have Dark Magician. There's a lot of support for him in this deck. He's there. He's usable. Next up, we have Dark Magician Girl. The deck only comes with one Dark Magician. So if I were you, I would remove a few cards and put in maybe 2 more Dark Magicians, just so you could get Dark Magician Girl up to 2,900. She's a good card. She's not terrible. Definitely for 1 sacrifice. With her effect, she's not a bad card at all. It's just, she would be more beneficial if there were more Dark Magicians in the deck. Moving on. This is another card that came specifically in the box. This is one of the next 3 cards I show you will be the promo cards that weren't technically a part of any deck, but they obviously went in this deck. So, Dark Burning Attack. If you control Dark Magician Girl, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So this is basically Burst Stream of Destruction for Dark Magician Girl, except you can still attack with her. This is basically Burst Stream of Destruction, except you still get to attack after you activate this card. This is a fucking monster board wipe for Dark Magician Girl, and you still get to attack. This is a very powerful card. Very, very powerful. The next card, though, is even more powerful. If you control monsters whose original names were Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, destroy all cards your opponent controls. That's right. This is a quick play, complete board wipe. So all you have to do is have Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl under your control, which again isn't very hard with this deck, or with this portion of the deck, because it's kind of built around that. Holy shit, this card's amazing. I don't think this was the original artwork. It may not even be the original text, but that's what this card does, basically. I think this is a translation before it was released in English, so that's why the text looks weird. But this card's very powerful. Again, promos that only come with this box, super good. Moving on to the most powerful card I think this box came with, Eternal Soul. All Dark Magicians in your monster card zone are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. Any of them. If this face-up card leaves the field, destroy all monsters you control. You can activate one of these effects. Special summon 1 Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard. Add 1 Dark Magic Attack or 1,000 Knives from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Eternal Soul once per turn. So, let me tell you, friend, what this does. Dark Magicians you control can't be affected by any effects of your opponent's cards. Traps, spells, monster effects, anything. Dark Magicians don't care if this card's on the field. And then, once per turn, you get to activate one of these effects. Special summon a Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard. Again, put more Dark Magicians. Get 3 Dark Magicians in this deck. Because if this motherfucker's out on the field, it's fucking open season. Just summon as many Dark, once per turn, you get to special summon 1 Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard. And then add 1 Dark Magic Attack or 1,000 Lives, which are both in the deck, to your hand from your deck. That's crazy. That is insane. This card is so fucking powerful. Yes, it does have the downside to where if this card's destroyed, destroy all monsters you control. But the amount of havoc you can wreak in one turn with this, even if your opponent destroys it their next turn, you're still going to be at a huge advantage. You've probably wiped their board the turn this comes up. So even if they wipe yours, you still have spells and traps back there, You're not completely defenseless. This is a really good card. I can't stress enough how incredible this card is. Moving on. We have Buster Blader. I put this in the Dark Magician section because it just fits. It's a 2 sacrifice, 2600 warrior. It just fits. I mean, it doesn't really fit anywhere else in this deck. So, that's where that goes. Then we have the Silent Magicians. They're spellcasters. Silent Magician level 8 has that nice high attack. He benefits from some of the other trap and magic cards in this deck, so good cards. They're great. They're fine. They do their job. A little bit hard to get off. Silent Magician level 4 is kind of time consuming for sure, but if you can get to level 8, it's worth it. So, moving on. We have Blast Magician, possibly one of my favorite 4-star monsters in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Each time your opponent activates a spell card, put 1 spell counter on this card, remove any number of spell counters to destroy 1 face-up monster on the field, with an attack equal to or less than 700 points times the number of removed counters. So, that's a great effect. If you can keep him alive, he can just... Because there is no maximum spell counter to him. He can retain spell counters. 7 times 5, that's 3,500. You could kill a 3,500 creature with this guy without even attacking. Blast Magician's a very good card. It goes in this deck. It works really well. Secret Village of Spellcasters. Holy shit, this card's powerful. So basically, if you control a spellcaster type monster and your opponent does not, your opponent cannot activate spells. If you control no spellcaster type monster, you cannot activate spells. Just control a spellcaster and your opponent can't activate spell cards. This is a definition of power. This is a very powerful card. But, again, if you're using the God cards, you're not really gonna have a lot of spellcasters out. So, this card, if you drew this card, and you have God cards out, and you don't really have, you BLOCKMAN tokens out, or whatever, this is gonna do more damage than good. So, it's one of those situations where it's like, what do I have right now? What am I using right now? Am I trying to use the God cards of the deck? Or am I trying to use the Dark Magician sides of the deck? It can be a deck draw, or it can be a winning draw. It's up to you. Really. Magical Dimensions. If you control a spellcaster type monster, target one monster you control, tribute that target, then special summon one spellcaster type monster from your hand. Then you can destroy one monster on the field. So basically, take a spellcaster you can control, tribute it, special summon a spellcaster from your hand, and destroy a monster. You can destroy one of your opponent's monsters. It says you can destroy one monster on the field, you don't even have to. So if your opponent doesn't have any monsters, you don't have to do that last part. Basically, it's just an easier way to get Dark Magician out. It's a very good card, it's powerful, so goes well with this. Magic Hats. Oh my god, this card is so fucking confusing. During your opponent's battle phase, choose 2 spell trap cards from your deck and 1 monster card you control. Special summon them as normal monsters, attack defense 0, in face down defense position. Set the chosen monster if it is face up, and shuffle them on the field. God damn. The 2 cards chosen from your deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during the battle phase. So, Jesus Christ. Okay. You take 2 spell or trap cards from your deck. You put them both on the field, face down. You set them on the field. You fucking switch them up. And basically, you use them as dummies. So you just hope your opponent attacks one of those instead. Honestly, this is one of the worst cards in here. You waste spell and trap cards in your deck. It only lasts for 1 turn. It doesn't even guarantee you any... if this worked like it did in the anime, where it's like, oh, if your opponent attacks one of these, then it activates that effect. That would be fucking awesome. This card would be great. It doesn't do that. It just wastes them. You're wasting spell and trap cards. So it's just a terrible card in general. I would replace it immediately. Moving on. Dark Magic Attack. If you control Dark Magician, destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. This is basically the opposite of Dark Burning Attack. You remember the one for Dark Magician Girl? So, really good card, obviously. Back row destruction's amazing. Not much to say about it. It's a great card. You're gonna be using Dark Magician, so fucking use this son of a bitch. Then we have Thousand Knives. You control Dark Magician, target one monster your opponent controls, destroy it. So, it's basically targeted destruction. Good card, obviously. There's not a lot to say about it. It's a good card. Then we have Magician's Valkyrie, the last card in this deck. Your opponent cannot target face-up spellcaster monsters for attacks except this one. Very good if you have some kind of protection or buff effect on her, or if you just want to buy time for your other monsters. Of course, there were other cards. You have your Mirror Force, your Negate Attack, your, Magician Circle and stuff. But they didn't really fall into any categories, and these are just common staple cards. So, I guess the question is, overall, what do I think of this deck? If I had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, compared to other pre-constructed decks, I think I would rate it like a 7. And the deck itself is incredible. Okay, the deck itself is really, really good. It comes with a lot of good cards. I mean, God cards, for God's sake. Exodia pieces, for God's sake. And you got all this stuff for Exodia. And then Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl? Hello? That sounds incredible. How would you rate this that low? Well, I rate it that low because the deck seems like it's trying to do too much at one time, and there's not enough support on either side. So, I feel like if this... Honestly, you could probably group the God cards and the Dark Magician support together, because, they're both high-level creatures for sacrificing. You could probably lump those two together, but Exodia seems out of place. Now, while the Exodia support does take up a large majority of the deck, I'd say it's about half the deck, it still seems like the other half of the deck just doesn't really support Exodia that much. It doesn't support you having Exodia or playing Exodia. It's just none of the stuff, if you have Exodia, 2 pieces of Exodia in your hand, and then you just have a bunch of, Obelisk the Tormentor, the Tricky, and then Dark Magician Girl, you don't really have a hand. That's not a very good hand. That's not a cohesive hand. It doesn't synergize very well. The deck can win. The deck is properly put together. It has good cards in it. It has, it can play. It can win. It's a relatively good pre-constructed deck. It just seems like it's a little all over the place. It just doesn't have enough direction to be amazing. Out of the 3 decks, honestly, I feel this is the weakest one. And I hate saying that because I love all the cards in this deck. I love the Exodia pieces. I love all the Exodia forms. I love Dark Magician. I definitely love the God cards. But when they're put into one deck, it seems over-cumbersome. It seems like there's too much and not enough support for one specific thing. Now, as we move to the Joey and the Kaiba deck, you're not going to see that. You're going to see very stark support for one thing. The Joey deck, Red Eyes. Get the Red Eyes out there, support the Red Eyes. Yeah, you have, Baby Dragon and Alligator Sword and this stuff. But the vast majority is Red Eyes support. And that's what I wanted to see here. I wanted to see either, Exodia support. That's what this was marketed as. Because look at all these Exodia cards that were specifically made for it. The Exodia Incarnate. You have the fucking Obliterate card. These cards were obviously made for Exodia. Obviously, I don't have to tell you that, but this deck obviously wanted to support Exodia more. But it didn't live up to that. Now, I'm not rating it any lower because, again, it came with amazing cards, and it plays well. It's not terrible, it plays okay. You can juggle trying to get your piece of Exodia and play Dark Magician or God card beatdown at the same time. It's not impossible. It's just, when I draw into 2 God cards and I have 3 pieces of Exodia in my hand, and it's like, oh, do I use these pieces of Exodia for sacrifices for the God cards or not? You can do that because, again, there are ways to get them out of the graveyard, but you don't want to do that. You don't... It feels like you're having to change tactics mid-game, which you never want to have to do. So, honestly, this one deck in the middle, you know, the first deck I'm reviewing out of this amazing box, 7 out of 10. And I'm going to be straight up with you, that's going to be the lowest score I give out of this box. Again, go buy this. This is a great deal. It's an amazing commemorative deck kit. Very, very well put together. I enjoy this a lot. But, yeah. So that was my review, guys. I hope I didn't ramble on too much there at the end. But, yeah, I would definitely go get this box. And thanks for watching, guys. It was fun to make this for you. And look forward to the next one, because next time, we'll be going over Mr. Wheeler's deck. See you later, guys.